Hello everyone, welcome to the best place to hear the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure, you're watching the Benjamin Cure Show. We are getting closer and closer to the start of the NFL season. It feels like we're at the goal line, it's 4th and inches, and we're about to cross the pylon and just jump into the end zone. So with us being just a week away from the regular season action, I'm proud to announce that in addition to our usual breakdowns on this show, I'm also debuting my new segment, Ben's Best. It's a list created by yours truly ranking the top 10 teams this season, and I cannot wait to spew my list for you all and give you some supporting evidence as to why I think these teams have earned their respective spot. But first, we've got some key stories to take on, so let's talk about those first. Pretty late last night, news broke that the Lakers traded for Patrick Beverley. Pat Bev will now have a chance to play alongside LeBron James, who he always wanted to play with, and Anthony Davis. I think that's an excellent move. I think it's exactly what the Lakers need. We know LeBron had a meeting with Lakers executives and the key decision makers, including the team's new head coach, Darvin Ham, and Rob Pelinka. They spent a lot of time discussing how they could make sure that this upcoming season was not a repeat offender of last year's disappointment. It's been leaked that LeBron placed a huge emphasis on the importance of consistent competitiveness and cohesion. Sources say that Ham agreed with LeBron and that their main focus is to hold everyone accountable and foster an atmosphere of selflessness. What do I consistently state on this show? Stuff doesn't get leaked unless the parties involved want it out there. If the Laker meeting and those terms were meant to stay private and off the books, it would have. Especially if LeBron and Rich Paul didn't want that out. They would make sure that the meeting stayed out of headlines if they were actually concerned about this kind of a leak. But they didn't keep it hush-hush. The group didn't keep a secret. LeBron James and Darvin Ham are sending a message to fans and even their own players. We want to be united. We want team players. We want effort, game in and game out. LeBron and Darvin knew exactly who they were targeting with those comments. It's not LeBron James. It's not Anthony Davis. Both of them play with a ton of competitiveness, effort. They work together well. They're a cohesive unit. They definitely hold each other accountable. And they play selfless basketball. AD isn't a ball hog, and LeBron has always been known to be a pass-first star, sometimes even to his detriment early in his career. Those shots that the Lakers are taking, those talking point leaks, consistency, competitiveness, cohesion, accountability, selflessness, those are all directed at one person, Russell Westbrook. Westbrook does not check a single one of those boxes. You know who does? Patrick Beverley. So the Lakers are sending a message to not only their fans, but their players through the media, hey, it's going to be our way or the highway. And the Lakers are counting on the fact that if Russell Westbrook does not fall in line with these key qualities, because when he steps out of line, he will ignore this plan. They are aware of that. And this new direction the Lakers are going in, they're going to have the perfect excuse to move off him. And in the event that the Lakers can't get Kyrie Irving, they'll have a scrappy, gritty, effort guard in Patrick Beverley. They're planning this season out way ahead of time, and they're not putting their eggs in one basket. The Lakers are saying, hey, everyone has to follow our new code, lock in or get out. If Westbrook can't take it, we're moving off him. Hopefully we can grab Kyrie, but you know what? If we can't keep Westbrook, we can't get Kyrie. If we can't make a blockbuster trade, then let's get a veteran guard in Patrick Beverley who can play and fit perfectly in our system. You've got to give them credit. Los Angeles is really trying this year. They have a strategy. They want to be competitive. They want to be contenders, and they know what it takes to get there. And it starts with their firm game plan and an even tougher roster. This is a great move by the Lakers. There was a point in my life where you would not find me anywhere without a book in my hand. Seriously, I was one of the biggest readers out there in elementary school and in middle school. I loved books. I'd read fiction, nonfiction, biographies, history. But once I started my journey as a broadcaster, that changed. Adults generally like to joke how they love to read. They just don't have the time anymore. Unfortunately, I fell for that same trope. When I poured myself into becoming a journalist and more involved in what I was doing and what I wanted to become, I accelerated that aging. So I had less and less time to read books cover to cover like I used to. Now, just because I'm not reading cover to cover doesn't mean I don't read at all. I still read plenty. And most of it lately is not books but it's articles, it's editorials, and it's press releases. So over the weekend, I was reading on Sunday morning, as I usually do, some sports-oriented stories, and there was one that caught my attention. It was an NFL mock deal, a potential situation. Now, I rarely talk about waiver wire scenarios or mock trades on the show because I like to discuss breaking news, or at least the rumors that are already completed. But this one caught my eye, and I need you to stick with me here. What about Jimmy Garoppolo to the Rams? There's a couple reports on the issue, but I'll go off the one that I first read on NinersNation.com by Rob Guerrera. The article states that while a trade between LA and San Francisco is unlikely since they're division rivals, the 49ers will have to let Jimmy G go. Whether that be via the roster cut down to 53 on August 30th or the day the roster will lock on September 10th, it has to be assumed that in the end they're going to move off him. If they don't, that's an entirely different story that will take over headlines. But looking at this from a practical point of view, Jimmy G will be free to go wherever he wants, to whichever team will have him. And the Rams are an excellent destination. Matthew Stafford's elbow is an issue. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Even with it being downplayed by head coach Sean McVay and the Rams. Sean McVay himself has expressed how unfamiliar he is with this type of situation, and he's acknowledged that it is not one which you want to rush. I'm going to read you a quote from Sean McVay about Matthew Stafford and this whole situation. Quote, "It's a little bit abnormal for a quarterback." He continued saying, "Some of this stuff is things that MLB pitchers deal with. It's something that we're kind of learning on the fly. And his feedback, it is never something that I've navigated through as a coach with a quarterback. You had little elbow things here and there, but this is something that we want to be as smart as possible with. And it's taken a big team to try and do that." There's a lot invested in Stafford this season. Stafford signed a $160 million extension with the Rams this offseason. They re-signed his weapons. They've essentially built the team around him for another Super Bowl run. That's the only goal here. But we've learned from those who have come before us. Yes, there are teams who have managed to re-sign key components from their Super Bowl roster. And while that's a huge accomplishment, while it's a huge step in the right direction towards repeated success, you end up sacrificing something that is very key. Depth. The roster is so thin after the main stars that if any one of them goes down or misses time, your whole season could fall into jeopardy because there's such a big gap in talent. The whole plan A goes out the window. It's time to improvise. Do the Rams really want to say, Stafford's fine, he'll be ready, then bring him back too early, risk him getting injured, and then have your star quarterback, the soul of your team, unavailable for a solid chunk of the season? I've said this before and I'll say it again. As important as the other positions are in the NFL, you're not going anywhere without a star quarterback in this league. Matthew Stafford missing significant time this season is not something the Rams can recover from. Which brings me to Jimmy Garoppolo. There was a time in this league when Jimmy Garoppolo was considered the best insurance policy in the NFL. During the years which he backed up Brady, and specifically after Deflategate, people were talking about how Jimmy Garoppolo was a top-tier backup, an excellent guy to lead your team if your starting quarterback had to miss time on the field. Some even called him more than that. Some thought he was next in line in New England. And don't act like it's not true, because it was at one point, and maybe it still is. And even if the narrative has changed, Jimmy Garoppolo is an excellent backup quarterback. I'll be the first one to tell you that. He has the confidence of a starter. He has the composure of a veteran. He has enough energy and fun in him to show the locker room that he's just one of the guys. You know, something very interesting, we have never seen an awkward transition, including Jimmy Garoppolo. Even when he wasn't the permanent starter, when he was a plug-in kind of guy, he commanded enough respect from the guys to go out there and lead and to win. Here's another thing. Wins may be accredited to one person in a team sport like football, but how quickly we forget Jimmy Garoppolo's winning percentage. He has a 31-14 record as a starter. Isn't it incredible how he nitpicks some stats and then completely dismiss others? If Jimmy Garoppolo becomes available and the Rams are weary of rushing back Matthew Stafford, and the cap space ends up working out. I don't think a coach as smart as Sean McVay and as revolutionary as him would be hesitant to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. Not with the intention of starting a quarterback controversy or QB battle, simply to serve as what Jimmy Garoppolo always was and still is at the very least, the best insurance policy in the NFL. It's finally time for our first edition of our new segment. Welcome to Ben's Best. During this part of the show, I'm going to rank my top 10 NFL teams this season, and I'll give a little bit of reasoning behind each team's position. I'm going to start working my way up, starting with number 10, the Minnesota Vikings. I like their head coach, Kevin O'Connell. He's an offensive-minded guy, which is where the league is headed right now. He's building a culture built on authenticity. That's also great. They have a solid draft that they just came off of. The team also has weapons in all the right spots. Justin Jefferson, elite receiver. Dalvin Cook, elite running back. And it's headed by Kirk Cousins, who has proven to be a formidable game manager, even if he's not in prime time. The Vikings also had plenty of close losses last season, which could have easily been wins. And that'll change this year. Many analysts also think they can win the division for the first time in forever. And while I'm not 100% sold, I can't give you a reason why they're incapable of competing at that kind of level. In my number 9 slot, I'll take the Cincinnati Bengals. Their run last year as runner-up was excellent. They have elite weapons like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, and they're led by one of the best in the position in Joe Burrow. I love the team spirit. I love their energy, their grit, their passion, but they did overachieve last year. That's why they're not higher on this list. Their division has only gotten tougher, and that's not great news for them. Nonetheless, I'll still keep them in my top 10. At number 8, I'm putting the Denver Broncos. They were on the receiving end of what was arguably the most important and game-changing acquisition of the offseason. Russell Wilson is now wearing the orange and blue. He is now at the helm with a better offensive line than he's had in years. He's going to have more support. Denver also has their healthiest and most complete receiving core this season after a couple years of not doing so. It is the strongest and most complete Broncos team that we've seen since Peyton Manning. They're going to be really exciting to watch. Coming in at number 7, I've got the Arizona Cardinals. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is missing a considerable amount of time. Yes, they lost Christian Kirk in the offseason. Yes, they lost Chandler Jones in the offseason. Yes, it is a very tough division. But I think Kyler Murray is that guy in Arizona, and you know what? So do they. Forget the film clause that was put in and then taken out. The team still has committed $230 million to Kyler because they know that this league is run by quarterbacks, and even if you don't like Kyler Murray or his leadership style, you have to acknowledge the reality of the situation. There aren't that many dudes like Kyler Murray out there. They know how dysfunctional they were before Kyler. They know that he's helped them achieve so much already so far, and I believe that they know what he can achieve for them in the future, and I have to believe that as well. The number 6 spot belongs to the San Francisco 49ers. They might still be some uncertainty at the quarterback position, but if there's one thing we've learned about the Niners, it's that head coach Kyle Shanahan's offensive game plan does not need an elite quarterback for it to run successfully. I like the defense. I love the offense. I mean, the playmakers on this offense are just unbelievable. Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, even Elijah Mitchell. In a day and age where weapons are everything, the 49ers might have some of the best guys out there in the league. And if Trey Lance can just play his role, just be good and formidable at the quarterback spot, this team is set. At number 5, I'm taking the Los Angeles Chargers. An exciting young team. They're on the rise. They're rapidly improving. Elite secondary led by Derwin James and J.C. Jackson. An almost unreal pair of pass rushers on the same team, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. A solid offensive line. Another excellent pair in the receiving core with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Add Austin Eckler into the mix with a very capable, elite young leader in quarterback Justin Herbert. That roster screams Super Bowl contender. All the best guys in the right spots. Gotta love me some LA Chargers this season. The number 4 spot in my rankings goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this one might be controversial since I just spoke so highly of the Chargers and I put them at number 5. Yes, the AFC West is now the toughest division in football. Yes, Mahomes lost arguably the best weapon throughout his career, his security blanket, and Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins. Yes, the Chargers are literally built for the Super Bowl. But the Chiefs still have Travis Kelce. They brought in Juju Smith-Schuster. They're coached by one of the best minds in the league in Andy Reid. And I've said it on this show so many times before, and I'm going to continue to repeat it. Quarterbacks run the NFL. This is not your dad's football league. And Mahomes is arguably the best quarterback in the league. I love Herbert. I think he's destined for great things. But until he actually leads his team to the number 1 seed and beats out Mahomes and the Chiefs as the leaders in the AFC West and ultimately the leaders in the AFC, I'm sticking with the leader of the position in Patrick Mahomes to keep his reign of success going alongside Andy Reid. I don't think it's that crazy. Opening our top 3, I'm going to select the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yes, the Bucs roster is not as talented as it was last year. It's definitely not as great as it was the year before that during the Super Bowl run. But this is another roster that is quite literally built for the Super Bowl. All of my teams in the top 3 are, but it's still very impressive. Yes, the Bucs cannot catch a break right now during training camp with injuries. It's devastating. But you cannot ignore the amazing talent on the roster. You can't ignore the Bucs' new acquisitions. They signed receiver Julio Jones. They brought in tight end Kyle Rudolph. They exercised the 5th-year option on linebacker Devin White, who is a game changer. I love him, even in a league where defense is starting to matter less and less. They re-signed running back Leonard Fournette, who was Tom Brady's most valuable option last year. And yeah, the team is led by the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest competitor of all time, the greatest of all time, period. Tom Brady ranked number 1 in every major quarterback stat last year. He was 2nd place in the MVP race, and if Cooper Kupp doesn't exist, Brady would have completed another career-toking comeback in the NFC Championship game. The Bucs would have gone back to the Super Bowl, and you know what? They would probably be back-to-back champions right now. If I'm putting the Bucs at 3, and it bothers you because of the injuries or because the roster simply isn't the same as that title run, I've got some news for you. You're lucky I'm not ranking the Bucs number 1 just because of Tom Brady. No one has Tom Brady's will to win. No one in the NFL can outwill him. No team, no coach, no player. And for Brady, where there's a will, there's a way. And there is a way through him. He'll end up finishing number 1 and winning the whole damn thing if he wants to. Before I get any more carried away with the Bucs, landing in my number 2 spot, I'm picking the Los Angeles Rams. They're led by the best coach in the league in Sean McVay. They have a supportive owner in Stan Kroenke who knows exactly what it takes to win, and he'll do anything to compete, even if that means financially giving up a lot. Similar to the rest of these top-tier teams, these elite teams, they're paying all the right positions. Quarterback Matthew Stafford, $160 million. Weapons, Cooper Kupp, $110 million. You've got an elite offense, and you still have money left over? What do? You pay a pass rusher, Aaron Donald, making the case to be the best to ever do it, $95 million extension in the offseason. That 3-headed monster is just the beginning. We know the Rams are finally getting a healthy Cam Akers. They have Jalen Ramsey leading the secondary. I mean, this is a scary roster that's coming off a season as Super Bowl champs. Maybe there's a Super Bowl hangover, but you know what? They had a great offseason, and they're back in the mix for it again this year. And finally, the leader of the pack at number 1. I'm topping off our first Ben's Best list with the Buffalo Bills. Even in one of the heaviest talent-driven moments in NFL history, the Bills possess the clear best roster in football. They were 13 seconds away and a competent defensive game plan away from an NFC championship. They had Josh Allen, who's a superstar quarterback. He's got all the help that he needs, Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis. There's one component that's missing from last season that is now here, an elite pass rusher. So they spent $100 million to get the best one available in Von Miller. The whole roster is absolutely stacked. I actually feel a little bit bad for not going into more detail just because they're that great, but it goes without saying. The Bills are not going cheap because they know there are no discounts for winners. And that understanding of what it takes to win in the NFL in 2022, and the fact that they're embracing it wholeheartedly and they're getting after it, is the reason for their success in 2022. Tonight kicks off the final week of the NFL preseason. We've got 2 games on deck. First up, Packers versus Chiefs at Arrowhead Stadium. That game starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We've also got next up, 8:15 Eastern. You can watch the 49ers take on the Texans on their home turf. Next week is the official start of the NFL regular season. I hope you are as excited as I am for this season to be underway. I think you know this by now, but for those who haven't caught on, this is the best place for the best takes. And if you want to hear it all football season long, you know where to go. So follow the show on social media, reshare the clips, comment down below, like this episode, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Until next week, I'm Benjamin Cure. You're watching The Benjamin Cure Show. Take care, everyone.